Let's talk about what we have in moving forward to look forward to, which is summertime. But what are the risks associated with some of those summer activities? Our next guest is going to run through that. Dr. Raywat Deonandan is an epidemiologist with the University of Ottawa. The CBC sent him a list of some of the leisure activities that Manitobans can now enjoy, and he's here to assess the risks. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. So right off the top, before we go through the list here, I understand that you say Manitoba is a good place to start these reopenings. Why is that?
Well, your caseload is relatively low, and you have very few new cases per day, per week. So what we look for when looking at whether or not something is a good risk reopening are a couple of factors. One of them is the reproduction number. That's the number of new cases produced by an old case. And we like for that number to be less than 1. And for most of the country, including Manitoba, it is currently less than 1. The exceptions being Quebec and Ontario and the other hot zones. And the other thing is that the percentage of tests that come back positive in your province is very low. Those are good indicators.
All right, let's run through the different risks. So I don't know how you want to answer this. Do you want to go high, medium, low, or?
Sure. Let's play it by ear. Let's see what happens.
Okay, so let's start with eating indoors at a restaurant. That's new today. What's the risk involved there?
Okay, so some studies suggest that those people who get the disease from another infected person in an indoor restaurant are getting infected via the ventilation system. So those who are in direct transmission of the air conditioner, that sort of thing, is problematic. So there is a medium risk in indoor eating, depending upon the ventilation system. And what you want to do is make sure your social distance is maintained. You're 2 meters between tables. You want to make sure that your utensils aren't being shared between anyone, even people in your own table. The ketchup bottles aren't being shared between tables. That the servers are wearing appropriate gear, and that maybe you don't want to use the shared bathroom. I would call this a medium risk for indoor eating.
When you say the servers are wearing appropriate gear, they're not required, I don't believe, to be wearing masks. Would you look for masks?
I would hope they're wearing masks, and the reason is masks protect other people from potential infection. So we don't know if the servers are infected. Obviously, we're assuming they're not, but they're exposed to more people than we are if we're going out occasionally. And so it's important that we not be exposed to them as potential vectors of disease. I'd feel more confident if they were wearing masks.
Okay, let's go to the bathroom thing. You said maybe don't use the public washroom. What about if you're at home and you have someone over and they need to go inside and use the restroom? What's the risk there?
Well, the risk is always low because your caseload is low. The probability of encountering someone with the disease is also low. But we want to minimize our risks at all, if not possible. So if you have a friend over and you're not sure of their status, you shouldn't have them over in the first place. But if they are over, then you don't want to be touching surfaces that they just touched. So you want to make sure that you're disinfecting surfaces, including the bathroom, before additional use. We think that one of the ways this virus might be spread is what we call fomite transmission. Someone coughs on their hand and touches a doorknob, and you touch the doorknob and touch your face, and in theory, it might transmit the virus. So we want to disinfect surfaces between mutual usage.
I want to go to a couple of summer activities. What are your thoughts on the risk involved with using a public swimming pool?
Very low risk. And the reason for that is there's zero evidence that you can get this virus from chlorinated water. However, the risk is actually in what you do while you're in the pool. Are you swimming close to someone? Are you having a prolonged conversation with someone? Are you on the side of the pool now sharing a meal? Again, are you using the shared bathroom facilities? It's not the swimming per se that's the problem. It's the other activities associated with it. If you're just going to swim, that's great. But minimize your contact with other people and other surfaces outside of the swimming.
So maybe this is a silly question, but you said chlorinated water. So what about swimming in the lake?
That's probably fine as well. There's zero evidence that this can be transmitted by water in general. But chlorinated water in particular is low risk.
What about sharing a cottage with another family if you're planning a rental this summer?
Well, do you trust the other family? If you do trust the other family, then, you do what you got to do. But the risk isn't so much in the other people. Okay, let's back up for a second. Going into less dense areas is always better. You're less likely to encounter people. The risk is actually to the healthcare system in those areas. So if you do get sick, you don't want to overwhelm a local clinic in a rural area that might have one bed and maybe one ventilator for the entire region. So, play it by ear and don't do anything stupid.
What about religious services indoors? We're not allowed to be indoors yet, to be clear here, but what are your thoughts on this?
I don't like it. So the signature of this disease is that it loves mass gatherings. In particular, it loves mass gatherings indoors. All of the super spreading events were done by mass gatherings indoors. I think one of the major super spreading events after China was an individual going to a church meeting in Korea and setting off that epidemic. So if you're going to be indoors for church, sit your 2 meters apart, try not to spend too much time indoors, don't intimately engage with other people. If you can do it outdoors, even better. But I would like to see indoor gatherings being less than 20 people. Not my call, unfortunately, but those are the situations we want to kind of avoid, mass gatherings indoors.
So I was just going to say, because in Manitoba, indoor gatherings, whether it's church or even a small wedding or just a big family having a barbecue and moves inside, as long as people are 2 meters apart and no more than 25 people, that's the rule. Why are you saying you'd prefer it was 10?
Well, the fewer the better. That 25 number is fairly arbitrary in my opinion, but it's a number, and it's probably the upper limit that I'm comfortable with. Having said all that, remember, Manitoba, the caseload is low, so your probability of encountering someone who is infected is already low. So probably, statistically, the risk is low. But if we're trying to do everything possible to maintain your health, then I would say, keep it the numbers as low as possible.
8:22, we're looking at phase 2 of Manitoba this morning, and lots of changes to what we can do, and we're finding out what the risk levels are. Let's go to some more summer ones. How about staying at a hotel?
Ooh, that's interesting. So hotels are probably okay because one assumes they're being cleaned regularly, but they might not be. That's the problem, right? We can't really control what the policies of that hotel are and how rigidly they're adhering to their rules. And we all know the stories of shining a UV light in a hotel room and seeing all kinds of bodily fluids on things. So I personally would not want to stay in a hotel room right about now.
Getting a haircut.
So we have some cases in the U.S. where people are getting the disease from going to the salon. And one of the problems is, of course, is we cannot control the activities in the salon. If everyone's wearing a mask, that's great. You can probably minimize your exposure that way. I think the risk, I would say, is low to medium, depending upon the activities being performed and if people are genuinely wearing masks and wearing gloves and not touching their faces and washing their hands.
Quite a few people actually were surprised that gyms were in phase 2. What are your thoughts on going to a gym?
I would say gyms are medium to high risk based upon the intensity of the intimacy. You're close to someone a lot, and they're huffing and puffing and exhaling a lot of gases in your direction, and you're touching a lot of shared surfaces. So the opportunity to share bodily fluids is higher in a gym than other kinds of typical social contact. I would hope that there are plexiglass in between the machines. I would hope you're wiping down the machines after each use. I would hope you're not using the shared walk room facilities. But I would not be going to the gym right about now.
Can I just ask you before you leave us this morning what I may not have asked you about that might be surprisingly high risk or maybe surprisingly low risk?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Going to the grocery store is fine. I mean, people need to understand simply walking by someone is not likely to give you an infectious dose. This disease is looking for mass gatherings, and it's looking for intimate, conversational kind of interaction, like a dinner or a meeting. So don't be afraid of your fellow citizens. Just be wary and keep your distance.
Well, I love golf, so I'm pretty sure I'm safe.
Golf is pretty safe. Yeah, it's one of the better ones.
I've always walked the course, too, by myself. Husband on the other side. Thank you so much for your time this morning, and really important on this first day of Phase 2. Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you.
Joining us to talk about the different risks involved with various summer activities and the different activities you might be doing this week in Manitoba as we do get a little bit move into another phase of what's happening post-COVID or during COVID still. What am I trying to say? Our guest, Dr. Raywat Deonandan, has been with us this morning. This is online, by the way, if you want to read more about it, cbc.ca/Manitoba. The doctor is an epidemiologist with the University of Ottawa.